You are sitting across from them at dinner. Or maybe you're just driving home in the evening rain. They are talking. In fact, they've been talking for 20 minutes. But as you look at their face, a strange, heavy realization settles in your chest. You are completely alone. You are listening to them lay out their day, their stresses, and their triumphs, but you realize there is no space in this car for you. There never is. And your mind starts doing that quiet, exhausting lap it always does. Why does it always feel like I'm an audience member in my own life? Am I just being too sensitive? Do they actually care about what happened to me today? Or am I just a mirror meant to reflect their reflection? Am I the problem here? Honestly, here's the thing. Mainstream relationship culture tells you that if your partner talks about themselves too much, they're just confident. Or maybe they just had a long day. But the deeper psychological truth is much heavier. Your relationship didn't get lonely because you stopped loving each other. It got lonely because you are dating someone who is fundamentally incapable of looking past their own reflection. Look, you're not failing at love. You are not crazy for feeling invisible. Every person who has ever given their heart to a self-absorbed partner has stood exactly where you are standing right now. By the end of this video, you are going to understand the exact psychological patterns of a partner who is only in love with themselves. And more importantly, you'll know exactly how to protect your own peace. Let's get into it. Before we look at the signs, we need to understand what is actually happening beneath the surface. Most couples believe that selfishness is just a bad habit. They think, if I just explain how I feel one more time, or if I find the perfect words, they'll finally understand and change. But here's what nobody explains. When you are dealing with a partner who is entirely self-focused, you aren't dealing with a communication issue. You are dealing with an attachment injury. In relationship psychology, we know that your partner's nervous system is reading the world through a deeply distorted lens. To them, emotional vulnerability feels like actual danger. When safety leaves a relationship, the love doesn't disappear. It goes underground. For a self-absorbed person, their subconscious mind has built massive, impenetrable walls as a defense mechanism. What looks like extreme confidence or self-love is actually a profound, terrifying inability to handle emotional intimacy. This isn't about the anxious avoidance cycle, where one person just needs a little more space. This is a dynamic where one partner consistently uses the other as emotional fuel, while offering zero emotional reciprocity. Trying harder without changing your understanding of this dynamic will only make you feel more depleted. The first dynamic is the conversational hijack. Most people in relationships assume that a good conversation flows like a game of catch. You throw the ball, they catch it, and they throw it back. But when a partner is only in love with themselves, the conversation is a solo performance. They don't view your words as a bridge to connect. They view them as a waiting room until it's their turn to speak again. Their nervous system is wired to seek validation, not connection. Here's the part no one talks about. Let's look at the two different versions of this dynamic. In the disconnecting version, you come home and say, "I had an incredibly stressful meeting with my boss today." They respond, "Ugh, tell me about it. My boss did the exact same thing last Tuesday. Let me tell you what he said." Suddenly, the spotlight is gone. In the connecting version, you say the exact same thing. A conscious partner stops, looks up, and says, "I'm so sorry. What did they say? Are you okay?" Something in your brain quietly registers, "I am safe here." But when the hijack happens repeatedly, the walls between you go up, and you stop sharing your life altogether. The second pattern is emotional shifting, or what we call the empathy deficit. This is where it gets really interesting. Most couples argue about the facts of a situation. But in a self-absorbed relationship, the argument is always about who gets to be the victim. When you bring a legitimate hurt to their attention, their psychological defense mechanisms immediately fire up. They cannot handle the shame of being the bad guy, so they instantly flip the script. What's moving through their mind in that moment is a desperate survivalist thought. If I admit I hurt them, I am flawed. I cannot be flawed. In the disconnecting version, you say, "It really hurt my feelings when you forgot our plans last night." They respond, "Well, if you didn't stress me out so much with your constant scheduling, I wouldn't have forgotten. You're always tracking my mistakes." But in the connecting version, an emotionally mature partner says, "I messed up. I forgot. And I know that makes you feel unimportant. I'm sorry." This isn't a communication hack. This is just what two emotionally mature people naturally do. When you get the shifting instead, your partner stops feeling like a person to come home to and starts feeling like a courtroom prosecutor you have to defend yourself against. The third sign is the one-way mirror, which is built on asymmetrical vulnerability. And this is the one most couples never figure out until they are completely burnt out. Intimacy is built on shared vulnerability. It requires both people to lay down their armor. But a partner who is only in love with themselves demands absolute transparency from you while remaining a total enigma themselves. They want to know your deep fears, your secrets, and your insecurities, not to hold them safely, but to use them as data. Meanwhile, they keep their own inner world locked behind a steel door. Not deeper conversations, not more compromising, not scheduling a weekly check-in, but two people who actually feel safe enough to be honest with each other for the first time in years. If you ask them to open up about their fears or their past mistakes, they will deflect with humor, anger, or intellectual jargon. Your nervous system in this conflict is like a smoke detector. It senses that this asymmetry isn't safe. That's the shift that turns a relationship that feels like a refuge into one that feels like a dangerous interrogation. Fourth, you will notice conditional flattery instead of unconditional presence. Here's the part that confuses everyone. People often think self-absorbed partners never say nice things. That's a myth. They can be incredibly loving, but only when you are fulfilling a specific role for them. Most couples experience a natural dip in passion over time, but the underlying presence remains steady. With a self-absorbed partner, their love is a faucet. When you are praising them, looking good by their side, or agreeing with their opinions, the love pours out. But the moment you have a bad day, look tired, or have a differing view, the faucet shuts off. In the disconnecting version, you are exhausted and crying after a rough week. They look annoyed and say, "You're always in a bad mood lately. It's really draining the energy in this house." Her brain, or his brain, is quietly registering, "I am only valuable to them when I am happy and useful." In the connecting version, you are a mess, and your partner sits on the floor next to you, holds your hand, and says nothing at all. Intimacy isn't built in the big, performative moments. It's built in the 30-second ones, when you choose to look up and stay present through the mess. Finally, there is the scar tissue of silent rules. This is the final sign, and it's the one that leaves the deepest psychological marks. Emotional distance in a relationship isn't like a brick wall. It's like scar tissue that forms slowly over 100 small moments that never got repaired. When you live with someone who is only in love with themselves, you learn to live by a set of unwritten, silent rules. You start managing their mood before you even walk through the front door. You unconsciously tone down your achievements so they don't feel threatened, and you over-amplify their smallest successes just to keep the peace. Most couples default to walking on eggshells occasionally during high-stress seasons. But in this dynamic, walking on eggshells is your permanent geographic location. This isn't a trick for avoiding conflict. This is what it looks like when you have slowly learned to love someone else by completely losing yourself in the process. And when you realize that, the illusion finally breaks. Recognizing these patterns isn't a checklist to go change your partner, because the hard truth is, you cannot change someone who doesn't see a problem with themselves. This is an invitation to show up differently for yourself. When you internalize this psychological truth, you stop reacting to their emotional traps and you start responding from a place of grounded clarity. These aren't tips for a better relationship. They are the beginning of becoming the kind of partner who respects their own boundaries enough to refuse to disappear for someone else's ego. Real intimacy doesn't start when you finally force the wrong person to look at you. It starts when you decide to stop waiting for them to get better, turn the mirror around, and become the person who makes your own life better. If this resonated with you, if you felt that quiet realization in your chest while watching this, hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment below about a moment you realized you felt alone in a crowded room. Let's talk about it in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.